You're 16, kneeling beside the porch, setting a $4 tomato plant from the Home Depot garden center into a hole you dug with a hand trowel. A lifetime later, dirt like that sells at auction for $32,000 an acre. The plant lives, same soil, same hands, 40 years of leverage in between. Of every dollar Americans spend on food grown in this country, 11.8 cents ever finds its way back to a farm. The rest belongs to everyone who touches it after the truck leaves the field. Between the $4 plant and the $32,000 acre sits a combine worth more than most houses, and an operating note most people never sign for. This is every level of farming in America, and what the climb actually costs. If you like breakdowns of how careers actually progress, like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. Level 1. The Backyard Row. You're 16, and the whole operation is one seedling, a bag of soil, and a hand trowel. At the garden center, the tomato start rings up at $4. The 2-pack works out to $5.92 a plant, which is the first time you ever do math on food. You carry the tray home and leave it out on the porch a full week before it ever touches the ground. That's hardening off, and skipping it is the fastest way to kill a plant you just paid for. You dig the hole out with the trowel, work in a good handful of dark compost, firm the soil in around the stem with both thumbs, drive a wooden stake down beside the root ball, and drop the wire tomato cage over the top. The garden hose does the rest. You water in the morning, because the neighbor across the fence told you evening water rots roots. Every week you pinch the suckers, the side shoots, that steal growth away from the fruit. You learn determinate from indeterminate, which is only whether the plant gives you everything at once or a little of it all summer. You forget to harden one of them off, and the leaves scorch pale inside 2 days. You move that one into the shade of the porch, and by the weekend it is pushing new growth again. A hornworm strips a whole branch bare overnight. You find it the next morning fat and green on the underside of a leaf, and you pick it off by hand. You start checking the plant before you check your phone. Then you wait, weeks of nothing but green. Then one morning there is red under the leaves, low down, where you were not looking. You pick it warm off the vine and eat it standing in the yard. The smell of a crushed tomato leaf stays on your fingers all afternoon, sharp and green, and it will still be the smell you attach to money long after money becomes the whole point of the work. The $4 plant makes more tomatoes than your family can eat. You put the extra in a paper sack and walk it down to the neighbors. Nobody pays you. The savings on the grocery bill are trivial, and you keep growing anyway. What you are actually learning is that you cannot rush anything alive. The next tomato you touch, somebody hands you a paycheck for. Level 2 pays by the hour, and it starts before sunrise. Level 2. The Detasseling Crew. You're 17, and the crew bus leaves the lot before daylight. Seed corn pays $8 to $12 an hour in Iowa, plus a bonus if you last the whole season. The national average for crop farm workers is $16.49 an hour, and you are nowhere near it. They hand you leather gloves and put you up on the platform of a detasseling machine. The rig pulls the tassels off the seed rows so those plants cannot pollinate themselves. Whatever it misses you pull by hand, leaning out over the row while the machine keeps moving. You ride the platform through the row, pull out whatever the header missed, count your rows down to the headland, mark the off types when you find them, and drink water only at the end. Wet corn leaves slap your forearms and leave thin cuts you do not notice until the shower. By the second hour your shirt is soaked through, and it is dew, not sweat, at least for a while longer. The supervisor walks the rows behind you. You leave 4 tassels standing in one pass, and he sends you back down the row on foot to get them. You walk it clean twice more that week, and by Thursday he stops checking behind you and starts using your name. On the days there is no seed corn, you are walking beans, hand-weeding soybeans, roguing out the volunteers and the off-types that do not match the hybrid. Row after row after row. Then it is hay, square bales stacked onto a hay rack behind the baler, chaff down your collar, and it stays there all day. You stop drinking at the end of the row, you drink at the start. The rows do not get shorter. A man named Zach Johnson farms near Lowry, Minnesota, 6th generation, alongside his own father. Asked what it feels like to work around a family has held that long, he said, "Pride. There is a lot of pride there. Somewhere past the end of your row, the seed corn becomes a crop, and the crop becomes a box on a shelf. Of every dollar spent on food grown here, 11.8 cents comes back to the farm. The rest belongs to the trucks, the mills, the packagers, and the store. You finish the last field on the last morning of the season, and the completion bonus lands whole, which is the entire point of a bonus you only get for staying. The next spring, somebody hands you keys instead of gloves. Level 3 puts you inside the cab. Level 3, the hired hand. You're 22, full-time now, running somebody else's iron. Equipment operators sit around $19.08 an hour. The machines you touch are worth more than every vehicle you will ever own put together. The day starts before daylight with a grease gun. There are zerks on the cart, on the auger, and on the drivelines, and you hit every one of them before the engine turns over. Then fuel. Then tire pressure. Then the field assignment off the tailgate. Fall is grain cart work. A used cart runs $35,500, and it is the cheapest thing in the field. The combine never stops, and that is the whole idea. You pull alongside it at speed, match it row for row, and it unloads into your cart on the fly. Get the spacing wrong, and corn goes on the ground. The first time, you drift half a cart width, and the auger throws shelled corn across the stubble for the length of the header. The operator's voice comes over the radio, flat, telling you to hold your line and come back in. You back off, swing wide, and come in again. This time you watch the combine's front wheel instead of the auger. The corn goes in the cart. Nobody mentions it again. You haul to the semi hauls to the elevator, and the ticket comes back with the test weight and the moisture on it. It rained the night before you started, and the corn comes in wet. She's a wet one, the operator says, which means the dryer runs all night. The dryer roars behind the machine shed until sunrise, and the whole yard smells like diesel and hot corn. Dust in the cab. Dust in your teeth. By November, you are shelling corn yourself in the second combine, watching the yield map build across the monitor while the header eats the row in front of you. You stop flinching when the auger swings over your shoulder. Then it is quiet again. Janelle Shemper runs a combine for her family's harvesting outfit out of Holdridge, Nebraska, and she puts her own job plainly. I am a combine operator and truck driver too. A custom harvester named Jim Diebert out of Colby, Kansas, bought his first combine for $11,500 and spent years paying it off. The machine is always the debt. At the end of harvest, the operator hands you the keys to the semi and the yield map for the North Farm and does not stand behind you while you read it. You can run every machine on the place now, and not one of them is yours. Level 4 is where they start paying you for what you know instead of what you lift. Level 4. The Crop Scout. You're 29, and the product you sell now is your judgment. Hired agricultural managers average $30.70 an hour. The truck carries a soil probe, a bundle of paper tissue bags, a spray record book, and a DJI drone in a hard case behind the back seat. You park at the field edge, walk the pattern, pull the samples, and diagnose what you find before you ever touch a keyboard. Then the prescription goes out, the rate gets set, the applicator gets calibrated, and the record gets logged the same day. The drone goes up over the pivot and shows you in one pass what walking would have taken all morning. You pull an ear back and find rootworm feeding in a corner nobody flagged. The variable rate prescription goes out that afternoon, and the damage never leaves that corner. On the planter, you catch a seed meter dropping doubles during calibration. It gets caught in the shop that same evening, instead of getting repeated across every acre of the farm. The EPA pesticide applicator certification rule, finalized in 2017, sets the floor for who is allowed to put restricted chemistry on a field at all. In Iowa, the private applicator certification runs $15 for 3 years, which is the cheapest thing that ever changed your income. You learn to talk in tramlines and green snap, in prevent, plant, and prescription maps, in local basis and moisture discounts. Purdue University and the CME Group run an ag economy barometer off a monthly survey of about 400 producers, and you start reading it like a forecast. An independent consultant named James Todd runs Todd Agricultural Consulting out of Plainview, Texas, and he says of the growers he works for, "My farmers are family." You stop walking the edges of the field and start walking the middle, where nobody ever looks. The field looks the same from the road. The grower keeps you for another season and adds his brother's ground to your route. You are making other people's dirt worth more every single year. Level 5 is where you sign for your own. Level 5. The owner-operator. You're 34, sitting in a county farm service agency office with a business plan in a folder. Direct farm ownership loans top out at $600,000. Iowa cropland averages $11,467 an acre, and that number comes straight out of the Iowa State University Land Value Survey. Run that math, and the loan cap buys you a corner of one section. You buy the ground you have been renting, and you rent more from 3 landlords who have known your name since you were riding the detasseling bus. A first-generation farmer named Cody Otten bought the ground he had been renting from his father at Clarks Hill, Indiana, financed through a beginning farmer program. He said, "I always wanted to farm, but I never thought I would have the opportunity. The combine is used. The planter is older than that. The guidance receiver bolted to the cab roof is the newest thing you own." In April, you calibrate the seed meter with a vacuum tester before the first pass, because a meter that drops doubles costs you more than the loan payment. Then you plant, you scout, you spray, you harvest, you haul the loads in yourself, and then you stand and watch the elevator scales settle before the ticket prints. Corn brings $4.53 a bushel at the country elevator down the road that fall. Growing it costs $679 to $1,017 an acre. You haul the first loads wet, and the moisture discount and the dockage come straight off the ticket in front of you. So you decide to hold the last third of the field until the crop dries standing, and that discount disappears off the ticket entirely. You lock a price against the local basis before the fall glut fills every bin in the county, and the check clears the land payment with room behind it. You check the basis before you check the weather. Paper rich, cash poor. The truck is the same truck. The only way these numbers ever work is more acres. Level 6 is what more acres actually looks like. Level 6, the landowner. You're 57, and you farm 10,000 acres across ground that is not contiguous and never was. Bob Welker farms 10,000 acres with his sons near Shelby, Montana, and he will tell you that is simply how much it takes to make ends meet now. Of the camera crew his family became, he said, "This has become a kind of reality show. Your fall runs on a fleet of machines, combines leapfrogging farm to farm, carts feeding semis, semis feeding bins, and a dryer that burns propane until Thanksgiving. You buy inputs by the semi-load and you market grain across 12 months instead of 1 week. A 35-acre tract of black dirt near Orange City, Iowa sold at auction for $1.13 million. Run it back to a per-acre number and it comes out to $32,000 an acre, which is a state record. The buyer was a neighboring landowner who plans to raise corn and beans on it. That is the part outsiders always miss about a number like that, because nobody out there bought a speculation that day. Somebody just bought the field right next door to his own home place. You read CSR2 the way other people read a credit score. A new combine averages $686,622. The middle farm household made negative $900 from farming that same year. Grain comes off under break-even, so you do not sell it, you put it in the bin and carry it into a spring basis that pays you for waiting. The 80 acres bordering your home place come up for sale, and the ring goes quiet at the number where most bidders become a no sale. You stop bidding with your hand up, you nod once, and the ring man calls it. The hammer falls your way. The bin is empty by July. What you own now is not a job. The final beat is what all of it was actually worth. Here is what the latter actually bought. Median wealth for a household running a commercial farm is $3.6 million. Almost none of that number is money. It is dirt, it is steel, and it is grain sitting in a bin, and you cannot spend a dollar of it without selling the thing that makes next year possible. The average American producer is 58.1 years old, which means most of the people standing at the top of this ladder got there by outlasting everybody who started out beside them. Of every dollar spent on food grown in this country, 11.8 cents comes back to the farm. 88.2 cents of it goes to everyone standing downstream of the field. That split never moved in your favor. Not once in 40 seasons of trying. So you stopped trying to win that argument and started buying the only thing on the whole ladder that appreciates. The seasons took something out of your back that never came back to you. You signed for that every single February when you renewed the operating line, and you would sign for it again tomorrow morning without reading it. There is a kid on a detasseling bus this July making $8 to $12 an hour off the same 11.8 cents. He will pull the tassels the machine missed, and somebody will send him back down the row on foot to do it clean. He has no idea that the ground under those rows is the whole business. In May, you drive into town and walk through the garden center at Home Depot. You buy a tomato plant for $4. You carry it home, set it down beside the porch, and dig the hole out with a hand trowel. because that is still the right tool for the job. Same plant, same $4. You work in the compost and firm the soil around the stem with both thumbs, the way you did when the whole operation fit in one bag of dirt on the back step. The hole is the same size. The dirt is yours.